Hi, Ian.
Hi, Christoph.
It's a pleasure having you here at our conference. And Ian, you are the CTO of a company called Bühler. Bühler is a Swiss company, and I would say it's like a big hidden champion. Yeah? Most of the people in the public maybe don't know them, the company, but it has a huge impact on their life. And what I took from your keynote today is, so first of all, the products you're doing, but on the other hand, there's a very strong commitment on sustainability. And maybe just for a warm-up, my question is, could you just summarize what Bühler is doing and giving us some insights why sustainability is such of a high importance at your company?
Of course, I'd be very happy to. I mean, firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much for involving us and inviting us to such a wonderful event and a wonderful conference. I think it's tremendously important that we share knowledge and best practices across companies to enable us to become more sustainable. Now at Bühler's I find an interesting company. It's a 164-year-old family-owned company, and we produce technologies for the food industry and for sustainable mobility. And we're about 3 billion turnover, so we're a significant size. But we supply many of the big brands and companies that you recognize, both in food and in automotive. Now we realized very quickly that the biggest impact we can have against things like climate change is to ensure that all the products we produce are the most efficient, deliver the highest yield, and therefore deliver the lowest CO2 footprint for our customers. Okay. And to do that, you have the physical products and the new products that we develop, but we also have all the services, all the digitalization that enables us to work on the huge installed base of technologies and drop their CO2 footprint as well. So we have a clear pledge in the company that by 2025 we would have solutions available across the 15 key value chains where our customers play that would reduce energy, waste and water consumption by 50%. And 2025 is tomorrow, and we have to have it ready next June.
Right, but that's, I think, a very great message as well from the company. I think you said as well the owners have a lot of passion to make the company sustainable and to put a lot of effort and money into it and to invest into this topic.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the advantages I think we have is being a family company, where the owners are extremely committed that we are innovation leaders, and so we work with the best partners to ensure that our innovation is as effective as possible, but also that we think long term. And that idea of thinking for the children, the next generation, is really embedded in the core values of any family, and that we try and bring to the company as well.
Okay. Very important topic. And where do you implement in the development sustainability, or I would say the thought of sustainability? Can you have just some concrete examples?
Sure. I mean, we look very, very closely at where the hotspots are in any value chain, where there are high need of energy efficiency, or even technology development, or even a transition to different ingredients, or a transition to different diets. So if you look at the hotspots, you then try and treat the ones that have the highest CO2 footprint. And they're typically thermal processes. So I gave the example today about paddy dryers for rice, and looking at where we could optimize the energy efficiency there, because that's about 50% of the processing CO2 footprint, so it's quite considerable. The other area where we can make a strong contribution is to ensure that everything that comes from the field is turned into value. So if you have rice and it's broken, it has less value, and frequently it comes out of the food value chain. And so you don't have that important staple food going to the people that need it the most.
And now we are on a simulation conference or digital engineering conference. And the title of your keynote was as well how simulation is an enabler to develop sustainable product. What are you doing in terms of simulation to develop the products and to follow the passion of the owners of the company?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'll stick with the rice example, shall I? Because it was one I talked about in my keynote. When you have rice, I mean, brown rice has bran on the outside, and consumers want white rice, and there are some good reasons for that. And the whitening process can be very destructive and damaging.
So you lose a lot of grain?
So you can lose a lot of product, or you decrease the value of the product, which for a processor obviously is difficult. And what we've been doing is using physics-based models, actually modeling 5 million grains inside a whitening machine.
Okay, so you're talking about really big models.
Huge models that even using GPUs take us a week.
Right.
So I'm sure my team are going to be looking for more hardware and processing power now.
It's good to know.
But I think this, being able to understand that, to optimize the control, to reduce the waste, the brokens out of that process, is a very typical example of how we look at existing technologies. Then if we look at new technologies, how do you transition to more sustainable protein? This is a huge step of what we can do in terms of making plant-based proteins desirable, a new center of plate for consumers. So if you move from meat to plant-based proteins, there's a huge impact on CO2 footprint, but you mustn't sacrifice taste and quality, so they have to be fantastic.
Okay, that's great. So from your perspective as a CTO, you're saying simulation definitely helps to follow the guidelines of sustainability in the product development process.
Yeah, I would say a few key points around simulation. I mean, if you think about engineers and engineering schools, we always design in a bit of safety. Now, the better the simulation, the more we can reduce the safety margin. So then you don't oversize things. Then you don't use too much material when you create a technology or a process. So I think that's very important. But equally, you can reduce any failure rates. And therefore, you can make sure that any food is processed in real time, when it's fresh, when it's harvested. So I think those areas are important. To increase the yield is very important. So all of these aspects, I think simulation helps us with a lot. And if we can then move towards things like digital twins, where you have the simulation, you have the IoT, and you have all of this together, you can start doing remote services, making sure lines actually run at optimal efficiency at all times, without having to fly engineers around the world to fix things that could be predicted. So I feel simulation in many areas of what we do becomes very important.
Yeah, very good message. Thank you. So
I'm assuming you agree.
I fully agree with you. There cannot be enough simulation. But if you look now in your personal, into the future, is there something you can share with us? What is what they call the big thing where you're working on, or what you are seeing in your company?
In terms of simulation, or in terms
in terms of general, what is a new product or something that is upcoming now that we have to look on? And of course, if simulation helps, great.
But I think, one of the examples this morning was a very interesting one. So we talk about this trend in die casting to go to bigger and bigger die casting machines. So this is high pressure aluminium die casting. And to be able to reduce the number of parts and therefore the material and the weight required to make a car. And obviously this has significant consequences for range or weight of batteries that you need to deploy in an electric vehicle.
Absolutely.
So this is very, very important. And I think to be able to optimize that to the max would be very good. And we have the first lines now working with big customers. And obviously simulation has been tremendously important in scaling those up. Because when you get to machines that are hundreds of tons, you don't want to get it wrong.
Definitely.
You need to be right first time. So I think that's one area that's really, I find quite exciting.
It's like a hot topic.
Yeah.
And even if I remember the forces you were talking about that you need to do the stamping, it's incredible.
It's staggering.
It's staggering.
Definitely.
So finally, maybe coming to my last question. So we are a technology partner for you. Is there something where you think what you expect from a technology partner for simulation, or some expectations or some wishes to us?
I think in the adoption of any technology, more broadly across a company, one of the big challenges is not the technology per se, but it's to change the culture and the adoption. So you have a lot of highly experienced engineers who are perhaps not used to using the latest technologies. And how do we drop the barrier of entry for these people to make sure that we can democratize the use of latest technologies and demonstrate the value of doing it to them? Because there's always a pain level that you have to go through to take something new. And I think the interest there is, how do we embark on this journey together where we support the transition to more widespread use of simulation where it really makes sense within our company?
Yeah, it's a great statement. I've never seen it from that point, actually. So it's not only the technologies as well helping the company or supporting the company in doing this, what they call maybe change over time or transformation. So we take that topic for us for the next time. Thanks a lot for the time, for being here, and all the best.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur.